Hey, welcome to the first of three presentations on manufacturing. The first question we need to ask ourselves when it comes to manufacturing garments is, where's the mouse? No, that's it. Where should we make the garments, and why should we make it in a particular country? So conventional wisdom says you find the cheapest place to make it and go there. That's correct, but it's short term. It doesn't necessarily put your company in a good position over the long term. Price is a factor, obviously, because cost drives business, but it should not be the only factor. And if you're always running your business based on the lowest price, you might find that you're out of business in a number of years, or you end up in a bit of trouble. And I'll talk about some companies as we go forward in this. So, where do we go? To answer that, we've got to talk to this guy here, Michael Porter, who's a Harvard professor who in 1985 came up with a theory called the competitive advantage of nations. And what he tried to explain in this theory is why nations trade. So, why Australia exports iron ore, China exports clothes, America exports Apple computers. And the way in which, and so he's suggesting that you need to do the same thing as the owner of a business, or as someone who's considering setting up their own business, is you should look at a country through the prism of Porter's diamond. And there's four components that we will look at: factor conditions, firm strategy structure, rivalry, demand conditions, related and supporting industries. And they all interact with each other to help build a picture of the strength of a particular economy. Off on the side, you'll notice you've got chance and government over here. Chance, and it's in grey, is because any business or any venture we do in life comes with chance. So you can be as prepared as you can be, but still fail in that business because of just bad luck. And the other one is government, which is to some extent out of our control. Certainly, if you're a small business, government's not influenced by you, but they legislate, whether it's through taxation or through various other laws, to influence the way we run our business. But these are the four main ones that we're going to be looking at. So, starting with factor conditions, the nation's position in factors of production such as skilled labour or infrastructure necessary to compete in a given industry. So let's say we're considering making garments and we want to look at a country like China in terms of factor conditions, and we ask ourselves, does China have the physical resources to make garments? And physical resources being land to grow cotton, for instance. And we'd have a look at the size of China, how much agricultural land there is, what the rainfall is like, what crops they grow, and decide or determine that yes, this is a country that can grow cotton. Do they then have the human resources to actually make the garment? So is there a large labour force? And certainly in China, yeah, it's a fifth of the world's population is in one country, and it also keeps wages low as a consequence of that. Knowledge resources. So do those workers, or enough of those workers, are they skilled enough to be able to make clothes? Are there schools which can support the training to make clothes? And how good are those schools on a world basis? Capital resources is machinery, so it's not money. And we ask ourselves, do they have sewing machines? And in China's case, not only do they have them, they actually manufacture them there, which is another competitive advantage, or gives depth to their competitive advantage. And finally, infrastructure. Have they got roads, ports? And China definitely has all of that. So China is well placed for the manufacturing of garment based on just factor conditions. You apply the same test to a different country for a different product. If we look at the second part of Porter's diamond, demand conditions, this is the nature of home demand for the industry's product or service. So Porter says, have a look at the customers, the consumers, and see how sophisticated or demanding they are for particular products. case in point would be Switzerland, which makes Swiss watches, very expensive watches, precision watches, high quality watches. And if you actually look at the Swiss consumer, you'll find that they also exact a particular standard or a high standard when they're consuming products. So you don't find too many $2 shops if you go to, I don't know if you've been to Switzerland or not, but check it out. You won't find many, El Cheapo shops there, because consumers in Switzerland don't really see value in it. They just think it's junk. But let's have a look at this next slide. Which of the is the true demand for Aussie fashion? So we've got Sass and Bide piece on the left, and our Yobbo on the right. Now Porter would have a look at the Yobbo and say, have a look at Australia, and might say that this is an extreme example, obviously, but what this consumer represents is a high level of sophistication when it comes to things like remote controls, eskies, and comfortable clothing. So I'm not saying you design for this guy, and I'm not saying you design blue singlets, but what you take from this guy is that this is a country that wants comfort and convenience and ease of use, because they're a relaxed society, and you build your designs around that. That's where the sophistication comes into it. And remember, this is hard for an Italian an Italian designer to replicate, because they don't come from a country which values relaxation the same way as perhaps Australia does, or leisure, the same way as Australia does. The third part of the diamond is firm strategy, structure and rivalry. So Porter says, have a look at companies, individual companies in a country, just to see how they've organised, how they're run, who runs them, and how they go about their business, to see how successful they are, because that gives us a picture of how good or not good they happen to be. I've got a few points on this one. Have a look at the goals of the company, where they intend to go in the short term and long term. The goals of the individuals, like the CEO or the chief designer of the company. Influence of national prestige on goals. This, actually, I'll come back to this. Before we do that one, I might show you a newspaper article about Myers. So this is from March, a few months ago. But Myer moves to extend its retail options with freestanding retail stores, and they set up a company somewhere here, established a new corporate entity, FSS Retail. So it looks like they're going to set up new stores which are going to be standalone, placed within shopping centres or along suburban retail strips. So to capture more of the market, remember they're competing now with the H&Ms and Uniqlos that are coming in to Australia. Their response to that is to have more stores, to sort of flood the market with more options for consumers. Porter says, look at that and decide for yourself whether that's smart or dumb in terms of the risk of cannibalisation of sales, because you might actually gain sales in these stores and lose them in your traditional department store. Also, the influence of national prestige on goals. So this is how prestigious some of the big companies are. Myers, for instance, up until perhaps your generation, was perceived, so your parents might perceive it as a more in a higher standing than perhaps you do, because there was certainly an association with quality of service and quality of product if you purchased from a Myer store. That seems to have been lost or sort of gone by the wayside to a large extent. But certainly in the past, working for Myers meant something. And Porter says that's an advantage if you've got an entire country that values that company. We don't have an equivalent for that in Australia now. It's sort of a bit fragmented. DJs has sort of gone a bit sideways, not so much down market, but sideways. Importance of sustained commitment. Are they in there for the long term? So certainly Myers has been around for a long time. What's the competition like? And we could describe retailing as quite competitive, although with the sales strategy of always sort of putting things on sale, it tends to destroy the market in the long term. And how easy is it to start a business? So in Australia, it costs you about, I don't know, $700 to start up a company, whereas in a country like Italy, it'll cost you 20,000 to register a business. So different barriers to entry in different countries. I'll probably show you the other one as well. Just note, I'm sure you're all aware of, so David Jones has been taken over, or will be taken over, by Woolworths of South Africa. So this also gives a suggestion of a retail sector, certainly at the top end or the big end, which is in a bit of trouble at the moment. And these foreign takeovers also suggest, in the case of Myer, remember Myers is a company which is not global. So in the last 20 years, as the Australian economy opened up and globalised, Myers didn't see it as being necessary to set up department stores in other countries of the world. The end result of that is you start getting your H&Ms and Uniqlos coming here and competing directly with them. Oh, where are we? Okay, final one is related and supporting industries. So the presence or absence in the nation of supplier industries and related industries that is internationally competitive. Porter says you can be the best designer in the world, but if you don't have supporting industries such as a university sector which is producing design students, then you're at a disadvantage because you can't employ people to work with you because they don't have the skills. So you need good universities to support your business. If we look at some of the images from Renaissance Italy, here you'll find that what these images do, even though they're some 400 years old, is they support designers, Italian designers of today, because being immersed in a country which is surrounded by those images can help you in terms of your inspiration and creativity. And so there's no coincidence that the Gucci's, Versace's, Enya's, etc. Are some of the top designers in the world because they stem from that country. Now that doesn't mean that Australia can't do the same, but what Australia needs to do is, where are we? Take advantage of our competitive features, which is casual or relaxed. So we've got a society like our Yobbo in the past that is predisposed to sort of being relaxed and wants comfort in their clothing. We have a beach culture, we have nice weather, and Porter would say use that as your theme. Doesn't mean you can't compete directly with these brands, but what you would bring to these brands is a sort of a comfort, practical aspect to it that he says is something the Italians couldn't emulate so easily. It's no coincidence then that I thought it was on this one, maybe if I change this to surf, that some of the biggest brands globally are Australian when it comes to, what did I do? Where is it? Yep, so Billabong over here, I was looking for Rip Curl. Fairningham. If we look at Rip Curl, these are global brands. These are the Dolce & Gabbanas of the surfwear industry. So Australia's competitive advantage lies not just in surfwear, but you build from that platform and start to build the particular range that you're looking for. So to sum up, what Michael Porter says is when you look at a country as a place to manufacture garments, you look at it through 4 prisms: factor conditions, some of the infrastructure, the skills base in that country, the type of companies that are currently operating in that country, the nature of demand by consumers in that country, and sort of related and supporting industries that will help support your industry. And once you build up that picture, you find what a country is good at, and then you make the decision as to whether you should manufacture there. So price, going back to the original idea, price is just one small component in a much bigger picture as to where you should make a garment or design a garment or retail a garment. Okay, failure to do so will result in a reactive business, which pretty much has been Myers over the past 10 years, that will find it difficult to compete internationally. So now, as it seems to sort of struggle in finding its way, it is exposed to foreign ownership. Target is another one which is reacting to the market and reacting to Zara coming in, and Zara is basically competing with Target, even though they're sort of different markets. And doesn't quite know which way to go. Kmart's done a bit better in terms of being proactive in finding its little niche down market. Thank you.